Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of This Is Us, a talk show where we have conversations around various topics. To our regulars, you should know us by now. I'm your host, Dee, and here are my fellow panelists. I have Tyler.
What's up? It's good. Hope everyone's well.
We have G.
Hello, hi.
And we have Jude.
Hi, guys. Good evening.
Evening, all. Before we go on to start today's topic, we would like to spend a moment to pay respect to the young 8-month-old rainbow baby girl, Azalea Diamond Kane, daughter of former footballer Ashley Kane, who lost her life to acute myeloid leukemia, which is an aggressive form of leukemia. Do read up on her story if you have not already. I'm certain it will touch your hearts the same way it has to all of us. Rest in paradise, beautiful princess. Thank you for tuning in to us this evening. Hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel for updates. Don't forget to like this video. So today we are going to be talking about unconscious bias amongst us. Unconscious bias is defined as the underlying attitudes and stereotypes that people unconsciously have towards another person or group of people, which in turn affects how they understand and engage with that person or group. However, some that have witnessed or been on the receiving end would call it consciously biased. Jude, why do you disagree with the term unconsciously biased?
I think the reason I disagree with the term unconscious bias is the same reason I disagree with a lot of terms or terminology, because they're just what they are, the slogans and catchphrases, and humans just jump on the bandwagon of catchphrases. One thing I know from my field of work, or how do you say that, from my experience, is mostly when people are at a disadvantage in society, or when certain people are being oppressed and slogans like this come out, you find that 10 times out of 10, not those people who are oppressed coined those phrases. Those phrases are coined in boardrooms by people who have never, or most of the times, people who are themselves the oppressors. I'm talking of people who are so deviated, who are so far away, detached from the problem. People like consultants, these are paid consultants. And sometimes people in the, what do you call it? The people who do advertisements, one of the biggest media industries. So those sort of people coin phrases like this, and they test waters with it and then throw it out there, and people just run around in circles with things like that, and it doesn't mean anything. Just the same way it's twin brother or twin sister, institutional racism don't mean nothing. Why I don't like it is because people are never held responsible for what they do. Because first of all, if you describe me as to somebody else and say Jude is in the hospital and is in an unconscious state, it means I must have been hit by something on my head. I'm in an unconscious state, semi-vegetative state. So I really don't know what's going on. Sigmund Freud, yes, who started with the whole unconscious thingy, he said those things lie dormant in us, that they sometimes make us do what we do, but we don't have control of them. But my disagreement with it is, for Christ's sake, if somebody has done monkey chants at me when we were at the games, come on, man, you were very conscious of what you were doing. You know the implications. So I wouldn't like you to hide behind that term or slogan, and go sit in one classroom and do some training and get over it. No, I would really like to knock you in the head if I could. But obviously that would be assault in itself. So that's why I don't think there are little things there that people will people will do, and it's just because of what they've been taught. A child is born, a child has got a blank space or blank slate or whatever. Don't teach that child nothing. That child will never learn to hate. We are taught all of these things. Like me, for example, people see me and I said, I've never smoked weed in my life. They do not believe it. What? Black man, big beard, everything, you've not smoked weed? I said, no, I have never. And I still, even when I smoked cigarette, I still hid it from my elder brothers. Yeah. But these are all the subtle ways that it happens. But it is learned and it's been taught. So that's why I don't like the word unconscious bias. It's just a catchphrase.
Perhaps maybe it's just the word used. So rather than unconscious, they need to find a different word to define.
No, not really a different. I don't want you to hide behind any word. These are bad attitudes. These are bad characters. If someone goes into the shop and shoplifts,
upon the years, so something
if
that's
I,
been sort of
yeah,
institutionalized into people. They've been, as they've grown up, it's just been put upon them. They don't realize they're doing it, but it's something that they need to start taking action towards.
yeah, I need people to be punished for their actions. Simple as that.
Tyler, what are your views, or how are we, or should I just say, how are we affected by this? How are we affected by unconscious bias?
Firstly, I agree with what Jude's saying, and I'll second by saying, I can't think of the right word to describe it, but it's like, I can't think of the right word. It's basically, I'm trying to say exactly what Jude said, essentially, where it's a learned behavior, where I think there's a small portion of people that may have these biases, not because they necessarily really do have this bias, but because they've been taught that. So I wouldn't always put them in the same category as the actually biased, but I would still say that they need to go and educate themselves, actually realize that, hold on, what I've been told all these years. They need, it's always about yourself doing education or doing research. Or if someone comes to me and says, this guy is really bad, okay, cool, I'll hear what you've said, but I'm still I'll see this guy and judge for myself. I'll see, okay, maybe he's not that bad. Maybe, I'll have a conversation. I don't know. Some people just take silly things that they've heard and then they run with it,
Yeah.
So, and then when it comes to how it affects us in our everyday life, because, Jude just touched on the smoking weed thing. Another example is I've been to places before and I've got really upset where has come up to me, like a white person has come up to me and said, oh, have you got any drugs? As in, because they want to buy drugs from me.
They presumed.
Again, I've never done drugs in my life, but yet on a number of occasions, I've had people come up to me, say if I'm in an area where there may not be many black people around, or if I'm abroad or whatever, people ask me for drugs. It's like, it's crazy, man. And it makes me so angry. So yeah, so it affects us every day. I can go on. I can go on.
We all can, whether it's because of our race, whether it's because of our gender, whether it's because of our age. But I think the race is the one that really hits home for us. As a panelist, we're all 4 Black people who at some point have gone through somebody categorizing us without actually getting to know us. So if we now start thinking perhaps maybe in the employment, when we look at recruitment and things like that, and I'm going to throw this one to G. So G, when, say, for example, you're applying for a job and the employer has seen you and there's somebody else and they seem to have hit it with that person, they like that person's quite similar to them. But when we look at your CV has the skills, you have the experience, but yet they're veering to that other person. How would that, because that's, I think, is an example of being unconsciously biased and biased via, I don't even want to use that word, especially when it's just, I don't want to use the word unconsciously biased. I'm just going to stick to biased because but that person obviously has seen, oh, we get on, oh, this person's fine, the person's not the same color as them, and they're veering that direction. How would that make you feel, G?
I'm glad you asked me by saying how would it make me feel, because it's not something I have gone out of my way to see if it's there or not, if that makes sense, because I mean, buildings will catch on fire and stuff. But I think if that happened, I'm one of those people that I like to have evidence before I do something. So you kind of have to directly do something to me. Again, as Tyler was saying, I'm not going to go by what I've heard about somebody. I'd want you to do it to me. And there has been a few occasions when I've picked up on it and I've said something. But if that were to happen to me, I know CV wise and stuff like that, someone, I think it was an agent, and I think she was Asian. She did say to me to take off the Miss, this is before I got married, to take off Miss from my name and not give any sort of indication what my gender is. And to be fair, that did work, because applying for the same job with the same CV without the Miss kind of made them actually call me for an interview. And I didn't even bother trying to say, look, I applied for this as a woman and you didn't even take me for, call me for an interview. And I'm applying for the same job, the same exact CV, same everything. And so it does happen, but it's one of those things that I try not to devote too much emotion to, because I know I will kick off. And fortunately for me, you know how when you pray for different things, you know what your strengths are and your weaknesses are. And it's one of those things that I have to ask God for patience, and also for the fact that no one that's going to test me is going to come my way that day or any other day, because I don't know how to hide my dislike for things like that. I will call you out straight away, and I will try to do it in the proper way possible. But I like to have my receipts so that when we need to go to court, I can say this is exactly what's happened, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of how I would feel, I know I'll kick off, but I'll try to do it in a, because already we have that tag of, well, for me anyway, we have the tag of angry Black woman. A couple of weeks at work, someone we have regular Zoom meetings with in a group meeting, and every time I come in, be like, oh, hello, trouble. This one I've met once in real life. And I had to say, actually, I'd rather you don't say that to me anymore.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, it's just bants. I mean, yeah, but you don't know me. I don't, what trouble have I given you exactly?
Yeah.
And I had to say it in a jokey manner because I had to meet him where he was. So I was like, what does hello trouble mean? I don't like it. Do you mind not doing that anymore? Because, I just didn't like it. It didn't make sense to me. I've met you once. We're all working from home. So where did that come from? And I think also it triggered many previous occasions at other jobs where they were, oh, hello, trouble. And I literally just walked into the building.
Yeah.
I haven't even said anything yet. So where's that coming from? So things like that.
It may have been flirting with you.
It might be, but I always miss it. Always. Yeah. So
but when we think
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying,
yeah.
When we think about creativity and productivity coming from the workplace, for example, okay, Jude, in your career, if you think about if they're looking for like, or somebody that likes the same music as them, or somebody they get on with, and that person is not able to do the work, how does that support the workforce if you're not actually looking at the skills? Or I don't know, it's just me thinking about what can be done in regards to avoid things like bias in the workplace or in recruitment is what I'm talking about at the moment. Jude, what are your thoughts on that?
I think if I get what you're saying, is you're saying, okay, someone's just said to G, hello, trouble. If she had responded in a positive way, oh yeah, you, whatever, use the F word or W word, and they just joke about it, they'll see her as someone who could be part of the team, a team player, go for drinks, have banters with each other. Some people will say, oh, you come up too serious. That's why we didn't take that one for the job, because it's about workplace culture as well, and politics. Yeah. People want to be around people they're comfortable with. And they don't, you see, they don't want a diverse workforce. And when I say diverse workforce, that's another big term on its own that I don't like. Diverse doesn't mean you need to bring white, bring black, bring Asian, bring Chinese. No, it could be all white people sitting on the board. It has to be diversity of thought. It could be someone from a public school, a state school, a private school, all together, different thoughts. Not everybody from Eton or everybody who's been to Oxford and now my bosses. No, that's not diversity. Or even I tell you, if a black man went to Oxford and a white man went to Oxford, a Chinese went to Oxford, they all think alike. So them sitting at the board making decisions, they're not diverse.
The same thing, yeah.
So yeah, people want to go for comfort. Look, even me, I think I've been a benefactor of this same thing. They call this unconscious bias, but we use the word bias because after the interview, years later, I was leaving the job, and they said to me, I was interviewed by two women, and they said, we picked you because you were a man, and although you have the paperwork, you were the least experienced because of the number of years you put in, but we picked you because you're a man. And I'm going to use the word here because we're all adults, because you men don't bitch around. That's what they told me on the day I was leaving. So what they were saying, there were two women. So what they were indirectly telling me or directly telling me was, we interviewed women before you. So you see, I have become a benefactor of that process. So women have lost their position or supposedly position because of me. You see, that's how we benefit. You see, that's all the bias, which should not be there. But that's what I was told on the day I was leaving. Said, we picked you because you were a man. You actually were the least experienced. And we're glad that we did pick you because you've done well for us. So it happens in the workplace, but these things need to be checked. What G did was very right. That's how you check it. I don't want you to go to HR and go to a training. I'll go to HR, but that's a different business. Because my lecturer, uni, did the same thing. He described me in class as a big, black, angry man. And at first, people just laughed, and I just said, okay. And the next day, he saw me and he called me, oh, trouble. He called me and he did that. And that's when I kicked. And I was like, I'm not the biggest guy in the class. There's a white guy bigger than me with big beard. Why are you? they've described that guy as a teddy bear and cuddly, but you've described me as aggressive, not cuddly and that. So that's what they've been taught. And this man is a reverend, is a priest of a church. This is that's the idea. Imagine what
checked him straight away.
Yeah, I didn't, because I thought, okay, this didn't ring well. And he did it the next day when I was coming and said, "Ooh, there comes trouble." I'm like, whoa. That's when I stood him and I told him, no, that's what I think we need to do. Check it and then report it, because I'm not going to let you just walk away and go to some 30 minutes training and tell me you've got a certificate to wave in my face. I've learned my mistakes. No.
Yeah, no, because they say that, because I know you say you don't want to mention the word diverse, but when we think of an inclusive, and I am going to use diverse, so if we look at people from different cultures, different backgrounds, we put them together in a workforce, we do have creativity, we have productivity. They'll have different skills as well, but when you have a one-tracked mind, if you're looking for the same of something, you're not looking at the big picture. You're not looking at what you can get from someone. You might miss what you're looking for. But I'm actually going to throw this to Tyler. Tyler, in regards to recruitment, because yours is different. You're in entertainment, into acting. You're an actor. So when you're looking at roles, sometimes these roles are predefined. They know sort of what they're looking for. I think I've heard in the previously, sometimes they're willing for it to be a boy or a girl. The roles have been made to fit whoever sort of auditions the best for it will determine the role or the gender. But have you, in your workforce or your place of work, come across, I'll just say biased, rather than unconscious bias? Have you come across it?
Absolutely. Every single week. Like, again, I could talk about this for the whole show. I'll give you some examples. So obviously, when we go out for parts as actors, yes, normally they're looking, the casting breakdown would say we're looking for a black man, or a black woman or whatever. So normally I'm not really going to be going up against a white person or a Chinese person or whatever, because, but there are times, I'll give you an example where I had an audition recently for a job, right? And it came through. And as soon as I read the script, right, I said to my agent, this is written for a white male. I just knew it was, because of the type of language, the way it was, I just knew it was written for a white man, right? Now, what a lot of companies are doing now is these tick box exercises where they were like, they're looking to cast, example, a white man in this role, but they'll say, oh, we want to see all different ethnicities, but they know what they want already. But so me, I have to audition for this part. I have to change the way I speak for this part, because if I speak in my normal way of speaking, it doesn't go with what's being said. Do you know what I mean? Because like, one of the lines was something like, oh, that's awful bad. And I'm like, okay, yeah, some black people may speak like that, but the majority, we don't really speak like that, No, we don't. So I'm here having to try and play a part, to try and get a part, which I know that they want to cast a white man for, but I'm having to speak now in a voice that's not really mine. And yet, what happened? I didn't get the part. Who got the part?
So why did you go for it if you knew?
Because it was a TV job. It was a TV job, and sometimes you go for jobs because it's like you to get seen by the casting director.
Oh, for other things.
As long as you do, as long as you do well in this audition, then it's down the line kind of stuff. You say no, that may look bad.
For the next one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's little things like that happen. That it's like, and that's not necessarily. I wouldn't put that in the same bracket as it being like unconscious bias. It's just tick box exercises that are like, okay, yeah, let's see all ethnicities. I've been out for roles before where it's like they see men and women, because like you said, they don't know what they want. But so it's little things like that. And then the flip side of it is, again, the parts that we get put up for in terms of the druggies, the
security,
the gang, all that kind of stuff, And then this is the issue that we face, right? We're up and coming. We want to act. We want to get roles. It's all about our credits and our CV, right? So, I'll get an audition that comes through and it's to play, some small gangster or security guard in something. And because it's a big movie, I'm like, okay, I don't want to play this role. I know I'm bigger and better than this role, but I need that credit, So then we have to get almost forced to go for things that we don't want to really go for, just to like get on the ladder, So it's, and then again, in the industry itself, it is a bit of that, you know, if you're playing, say for example, I've been in I've done a few shows at the Globe before, where you know, in Shakespeare plays, and you know, most of the time, unless you're playing like Othello or Don Pedro,
Othello, yeah.
maybe Don Pedro in the film is obviously Denzel Washington, so he's associated with a black man, but in real life he probably was a white man. So most of the times you're playing white characters, so sometimes you feel like there's this, like, you know, you have to almost play it like a white man, for example, even though we should be comfortable to play it as ourselves. And we did the Scottish play once. You're not allowed to say the name of it. If you know the name, you know the name. And we set it in Africa, you know. So we did this. This is one project I did at drama school, and it was amazing because it just brought out so many different things and and you know. So yeah, the biases are there every single day, but you learn to kind of work with them and get past them. And it takes a long time.
I'm going to now touch on sort of when we think about promotions, but before we go on to that, somebody in the chat, Temi, has put that she believes that we all have, she put that we all have some type or level of unconscious bias. She said, okay, Nigerians generally, no matter where they are, they'll always veer to a Nigerian church. Which is true. It's true to a sense. Depends on the denomination. But we know that majority of the time they do look for a Nigerian church. So in a way, yes, some people do, or we all
not just church. Sorry to interrupt. Not just church. I've had to check aunties that were so blatantly racist. Yeah. I'm talking about aunties, like Nigerian aunties. There was two of them in particular, and we're having a conversation, and they were so. First of all, they were racist towards me. That was with them, and then they were racist towards the British white people. And when they were saying certain things about me, I kind of was like okay with it because it's like a generational thing. So even though they came in when they were like in their late 20s and they're now in their late 40s, they still have a Nigerian mindset. It hasn't changed. That's fine. And then they would say something like, oh, they were calling me like, oh yeah, I'm Nigerian, but I'm really, really white British sort of thing, which is fine. I didn't even bother. And then when they started saying lots of racist things about white people, I had to check them. I said, you can't, and it wasn't a case of, auntie, don't go and say this one outside, do. It wasn't that kind of checking. It was trying to understand why they were saying this thing. So I kind of flipped it. And you know, when you have to simmer yourself and your spirit to a point where, one, you're not rude, two, you're trying to understand what's going on, and three, you're trying to teach an older person, an elder, something without it seeming like you're schooling them. Do you get what I mean? So it took all of my energy not to start shouting. But I've never been in a position where aunties were this racist. I was shocked.
I think with our generation, we're the generation that's stepping forward and us speaking up. If we take the generation before us, and it's not just the Nigerians, it's not just Blacks, it's literally, racism occurred, and it was more prevalent then. It was more, our aunties, it was a normal thing for them. Whereas our generation now coming up saying, no, well, that's wrong. You can't speak up like this. You can't say this. You can't call this person. You can't. Yes. I have this conversation many a times with people that are older than me. For the mere fact, I think it's just their upbringing compared to mine, where I've grown up.
It was the first time I had to do it. So it was just because normally if it happened somewhere else, I would wait for someone else to say something. But in that point, I was the only other person, and I couldn't just say, okay, auntie, and then change the subject. I had to say something. And from the way they react, I think they got it, and I hope they've changed. But I remember
no, just move on and say it in places where they have comfort, where they're comfortable enough to say it, no longer in your presence. I think what you did was good, though. What we need to do is just, the responsibility for us is to check. I check a lot of things. It's not just about racial terms. It's about whether people, since the George Floyd thing, I've had to check a lot of brothers and say, come on, think this way, think that way, think differently. The emotions are higher. No, you think I'm not angry? I've been racially abused, but look, if I jump in the gutter with the racist, man, we all will be in the gutter. I know I talk here and I say something I would like to knock them out, but I've been spat on in this country, and I just walked away and I said, look, I'm not going to go in the gutter with you because it will be rough for all of us. So I think it's we checking them. It's our people, it's everybody. But there are little things like the bias where you're looking for your own church, looking for jollof rice, looking for your favorite food. Those are different. We're talking of bias that can really affect your livelihood, affect your family, affect you and cause depression. These are different from talking about jollof rice and what church you want to attend. They are absolutely different. So
as a teacher, how would I put it? In my career, we have got a lot of it's so at primary level, it's women dominated, and as you go into secondary, there's mixed gender. You get more males. I think that's probably due to the whole maternal nurturing when it comes to the little ones, but which males can happily do too. But males tend to veer to secondary. But one of the things I noticed was when I'd go on things like school trips, I'd go on a school trip and the person receiving us would presume that my teaching assistant, who is an elderly or somebody that's probably older than me, white lady, well, they'll presume that that's the class teacher and I'm the teaching assistant. And then I then need to make myself clear that no, actually, I'm the class teacher and this is my teaching assistant. And that's due to them just looking. I have to sort of make it very clear. And I think I deal with that quite regularly on school trips and things like that. But Jude touched on something in regards to promotion. He said he actually showed it working to his benefit in regards to receiving a role that was not for him, but they gave it to him because he was a male and there was a whole board of females that applied for it. But what about promotions? When we think about people promoted due to them saying, well, you don't fit in, we're not going to take you on. So I'm going to pass it to Tyler or G. You don't fit in, we're not going to take you on. Yet you've got all the skills, everything, we're not going to take you on. And it's very clearly laid out.
Do you want to say that one?
Yeah, sure. I was talking to a friend of mine about this literally last week. She's also an accountant. We went to uni together, but she's proper senior leadership and all that. And she was telling me how so I haven't had that personal experience for one, because senior leadership in accounting, as you all know, yes, I'm an accountant, I don't like it. I'm not trying to pursue it. But she was saying to me how she feels she has to work extra hard to stay or to maintain her position. She had this big meeting she was prepping for, and she was telling me we're talking like 7 p.m. She's like, oh, she still needs to go and check to make sure. I said, but all your minions have done all the work now. All you have to do is go and talk about it. She goes in, but she doesn't want to get there. And they ask her a question and she looks like she doesn't know what she's doing because, she's the only Black person on the senior leadership. And I went, you respond as any other person and say, I'll get back to you. I'll go and check and I'll come back to you if you don't have it straight away. You don't have to. I even said, it's not JAM. If you're Nigerian, you know what JAM is. It's not WAEC. It's not GCSE. It's not A-level. You don't have to cram it. If you don't know it, tell them you're going to come back. But the fact that she mentioned that because she's the only Black person and the only Black woman, I was just like, no. You can't, because the more we kind of perpetuate that as an issue or make it a big thing, they're going to keep doing it, if that makes sense. And they're not going to, the same way we have to educate people, we also have to remember that we're the ones educating them and we have to kind of live that education for them to see, if that makes sense. And I think because I've never had that experience before, I can only speak for how I would react if it was me. If you ask me a question in a meeting, I don't care if I'm the one supposed to present. If I don't know it, I'm not going to try and make like, oh, I have to know this stuff because as the token, I have to be perfect all the time. No, I don't know it. I'll get back to you the same way what Karen said, innit? That's how I would look at it.
I do to an extent see where your friend was coming from, because it's sort of where I am in my career, at middle leadership going into senior leadership. And at times you are expected to sort of, or you have to work that little bit harder, only because you notice that they are supporting everybody else and you're not actually receiving the support you should be receiving.
Fact.
I went through a senior leadership qualification and I can tell you the support I had was next to minimal, and yet I completed that. And only because I had the support of somebody else I worked with who was on the same level, Black, both of us just supported each other. But those within the team, the ones above, there was no support. So it's a case of sometimes we do have to work that bit harder. And we work in schools, SLT are minimal when it comes to Blacks. When we look at Black, whether females or males, we're still rising in number when it comes to education. The other day, I came across a young lady who told me she's just been promoted to a vice principal. I looked at her and I said, you know what, you're making moves for the mere fact of we don't have many Black females or black in general that's going up to those positions or being taken. We aspire to it, but not being taken on into those positions. But what I wanted to touch on was, I'm going to move on to sort of age bias, because I know one of the things I hear all the time is, oh, you should be good at IT because you're young. You should be good at this.
What?
Exactly. They just presume that because it's tech, you've got a project linked to technology, somebody that's young would be better than somebody that's older. Jude, what are your views in regards to that?
As our resident granddad.
Resident granddad, jeez. Oh my God, my thoughts are just gone now.
Sorry, Jude.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Like every other bias, there's gender bias, there's age. Yeah, I think that's just assumptions, though. What are they classed as bias? I really don't know. They're just assumptions like, oh, you're young, you guys are on Snapchat, so you should know this. I've met a 98-year-old lady, and she had so much gadgets in her room, and she was saying, I can't do without my gadgets. The way she was playing with the iPad, I was like, I couldn't even do that. I don't know how to use an iPad. So again, we need to check our biases. People do, people are biased. I'll tell you a quick story. When we I used to be a security guard. The first training, I was trained by a white guy, and he said, one of the questions they were asking, maybe security guards would know if they're watching. It was like, if a white guy or black guy come into the shop, which one should you keep your eye on? Everybody, even though, the whites and the black people will go for the black guy. It's a normal part of the training. And he'll be like, you failed, man. And he will ask you, which sort of white guy will you even go for? And people will go for the white guy who's wore the trousers, the pants sagging or something. Like, you failed again. It's the white guy who wore a suit. That's the one you should be checking, because nobody expects him to steal. He's the one that will go, oh, quick chocolate. Oh, quick this, quick that. And actually, they were the ones doing the shoplifting. That guy with the tattoo you just see walked in with the locks. They actually go in there, buy their stuff and pay and walk out. So there's so many assumptions, and not all of them class as bias. That's what I'm trying to say. Bias is big. That's why I don't like the term. That's why I said initially I don't like the term they're using to cover some of these many atrocities. Some of them are just mere assumptions. Yeah,
I call it discrimination. I don't even use bias. It's discrimination. Is that sex, race,
some of them is hardcore,
age, or
gender.
what? To me, thank you, gender. To me, I just call it all discrimination. That's what I call it.
Let me tell you another one. Let me tell you another one. I live between two neighbors. One of them is an older man. He's probably should be in his 70s. The other one is a young man. I'm older than him. Between them, they blaze some fine weed every minute. Oh my God. Sometimes they smell so bad, so I know they're smoking bad one. But sometimes it's so fresh. It's like, you know that fresh beer when you buy beer from the pub? It's so fresh, like, I'm like, okay. So we get these cacophones or whatever, symphony of aromas on a daily. Unknown to me, I didn't know the whole neighborhood thought it was Jude, old Jude, blazing 24/7. Until a lady confronted me and she said, Jude, say, nice aroma always coming from your house. I'm like, not skinny. She said, nice weed. I'm like, I don't smoke cigarette. She's like, oh, not from you? A white lady. I said, no, it's not from me. I said, if you want to know, I'm not snitching. It's those two guys. And she was like, we all thought it was you. I said, if you hear the nice smell of whiskey, that's me. Weed, cigarette, it ain't me. So that's how far it goes. Just imagine something went wrong. And so many times I'm on the train, I go on the train, DLR, and another person, a white person, mostly in the morning, I've smoked weed and it's smelling weed. And I'm sat there and everybody's living. I'm like, I'm not the one smelling weed, for Christ's sake, but just because of the way I look.
Yeah.
And they just
and
think,
you used to have dreadlocks as well, didn't you?
I used to have dreadlocks. It was when my locks was really long. It was worse. I was getting all the looks. My own manager.
To presume that somebody with dreadlocks smoked.
My own manager got into a car and she first of all called her daughter to tell her where we were heading to. She shouldn't have done that. It's not professional. I let it slide. It's our car, not my business. And the next thing, she was shocked when I told her I've never been arrested, nor smoked weed.
Why
and
was
she
she
like,
shocked you've never been arrested?
A black man with locks, man, in London. I should have been stopped and searched and arrested. I'm like, I've never been stopped and searched. She was like, wow. And she said, you're lucky. I'm like, what do you mean I'm lucky? I'm not lucky. I
Mm.
walk past, they don't bother me. I don't bother nobody. But she was shocked to find out that, wow, you live in London this long and you don't smoke weed and I'm like, but so you
The
see, these
stop
are
and
the things we
search
have
thing
to.
you said, I actually, when my brothers came to this country, they were quite young. They were very young, but they were very tall. Like one
Oh,
was, I don't know, 15, but he was already 6'2". The other one was however old, but they were tall. And I remember one of the few things I told, and I think I may have mentioned this to my husband when he came as well, is if you can, try not to wear hoodies all the time. If you
Mm.
can, avoid hoodies. And if you're going to wear hoodies, try not to wear black. And my one of my brothers in particular said, if you let your trousers sag, because he was doing fashion in it, if you let your trousers sag, try and make sure you've crammed the something you're going to read to the police about your rights. And I remember I printed it for him and I gave it to, I can't remember where I found it online.
imagine that.
When they
Imagine
stopped
that.
no, because I had to prepare them, because these are boys
Imagine.
that
You
are
shouldn't
just
have to.
doing
Rather than
whatever they're doing
preparing
on their
them,
phone.
shouldn't the police be educated in regards to these are the boys
Exactly.
that they're expressing themselves by fashion? So the police should
Exactly.
be educated
And
in
they're not
regards to.
gonna, and I said to them, I agree with you, and I said to them, they're not gonna stop long enough to ask you your age or for you to
Mm.
even call your responsible adult or anything, because you look like a grown person. One grows a beard in 5 seconds, the other one 5 years. So it's like you look older than your older brother. So just these are the things that in this country you just have to know, so that you
Yeah.
don't put yourself in a position where you're just unconsciously biased to or at or whatever, or
That's
discriminated
the thing.
against. So I
That's
told
the
them
thing.
straight
Yeah.
away.
I think that's a good thing to do, because although we can sit here and say, why should they not be allowed to wear a black hoodie or wear their trousers sagged? I agree. Why should they not be allowed to do that? But we know what wearing that on the street as a young black boy that's 14 walking down the street, that could be tall. I was tall when I was 14, so I got stopped by the police all the time. They thought I was older than what I was. I would get the bus. My mum would have to prove that I was a child just for the bus driver to, let me have a child, for
Oh,
example. So, but at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing for us as parents to say to our children, look, we have to educate them as well and say, look, because of history, because of whatever, people will dress like this and people will get picked up by the police. Some people that may have dressed like that have been involved in gangs and this and whatever. So we do have to teach them as well, so that they know, so that they're smart and they know. And again, like you said, if they do get stopped, then at least they know what to say.
Yeah, know your rights.
It's a difficult one, but we can't just sit here though and be like, oh no, they can wear what they want, because
no. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That goes with anything.
That's what I tell my kids. I tell them how to behave out there, respect everyone, not just the police, anyone, bus driver, respect them. Put yourself in a position where, you can explain yourself about things. But my point is, we shouldn't have to do that, because I tell you this, we did a research on this. These people will kiss their son or their daughter outside the house. I love you, go to school. And the black parent is saying, behave yourself, not go there, not go here. That alone sets them on a path. I don't want to say failure, it sets them on a difficult path. We have to do twice more than the other people. When I was in uni, Jamaican friends came to me and said, the lecturers told us to tag along with you Nigerians because you guys do twice as hard as everything. And she asked me why. I said, probably because our backs been against the wall all our life. So we had to double duck on ourselves. So but we shouldn't do that. I should be able to just kiss my son on the head and my daughter and say, love you, bye. Not be saying, oh, mind what you say, mind what you wear, mind how you cross your leg, go to school on time. We shouldn't be doing that. Oh, pack your hair in one way. No way, you're human, exhibit you. But I read what
Tyler and I are not at that stage yet.
No, what Tyler said, I do it. I'm saying we shouldn't have to do it. I do what Tyler said all the time. I tell them how to dress. I don't let my boys sag their pants. I don't let them use any kind of words that they shouldn't be using. But one thing I tell them though, if you're bullied, please tell me on time. But if anybody hits you with their left hand, make sure you hit them so hard that hand is damaged and they're never able to raise it and hit you again. That's one thing I tell them. And if their parents get involved, call me. I will stand. So long as you're not the one causing the trouble. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm not lying.
No, because on that, I'm going to talk about when they say if you're black, you're aggressive. Now, I'm going to put this down to, because we're talking about our children. I have a 13-year-old daughter who is outspoken. If she doesn't agree with something, but she's been trained to politely do so. But she talks sort of like me. So she's very her voice is quite strong. So when she speaks, it's clearly, it's out there. But it's been said that she's aggressive, or she goes to a school where predominantly there isn't, it's more of other, I'd say other colors than it is black. So she's sort of a black girl amongst all other races. So it's always, oh, it was her. Oh, it was her. And to me, it's, I've had to go through stages of how I address the school, how I speak to her, because sometimes I have to let her know that you are going to go through this, because I'm not telling you to change, but you need to know where your surroundings are and who you have around you. This is you, you've been beautifully made, but you need to ensure that you know who you're around. And we do have to change ourselves depending on who we're speaking to. I know if I was sitting in a room with all you guys, my Nigerian accent will come out. I would be talking to you, what's going on? Are we okay? We are all right, right? But if I was sitting in a room with all my colleagues, my standard English will come out. I'll be talking,
I'm the opposite now. I'm the opposite now. My current job and my last job before my current one, I got made redundant. And even before I knew I was going to get made redundant, there was just this, I don't know how to explain. There was this, since I've had my kid, I've changed a lot. There was this thing like, I have to be me all the time. Like, I don't actually have the time or the energy, I wasn't sleeping, to be switching. So I made a conscious decision to just be myself. Like my last job, my current one, they knew that if I was getting frustrated with something, I start talking like this. So they know that there's a problem. Like they know straight away. And if everything is fine, I speak like. So they would just, and to the point where by the time I left that job, and even my current one, they know what means. Like if I say that, they know I'm saying pardon. And there's been meetings where I've ended with Abi or Sha. Like I'm just, and it's just nice to just be like, you know, and I don't know, it's just easier for me to just be that way. And I'm so happy I am that way. Like if I'm talking to colleagues or my manager or whatever, if I start getting Nigerian, they all know that, okay, right, she's a bit frustrated about this thing, sort of thing. So, but back in the day, I did used to put on my St. Margaret's accent. I went to private boarding school here. And then as soon as you leave the building, you switch it back on. But now it's the same everywhere. It doesn't really matter.
You know what I was going to say? Yeah. Someone put it in the comments as well. I'm sure you just see it, D, but I agree with what Lara just said about the unconscious bias started somewhere. A few bad eggs have caused a negative bad egg. I agree with that. And that happens a lot, I think, where, you know, say like if where, you know, an older white lady is walking down the street and then they see like a younger black guy, and then the older white lady gets a bit scared or threatened, feels threatened for no reason whatsoever, just because he's a young black guy. If that acts like, you know, in a kind of angry way, and angry because he's angry at the fact that she's scared when he's not a threat, then she's gonna go away being like, oh, see, he got angry, you know. So it's always our job to try and teach our youngers and even teach ourselves. You know, for example, if I've ever been stopped by the police, which I have a lot in my younger days, I used to get angry back in the day, right? So it took me a long time to turn around and be like, oh yeah, hey officer, no, I'm not doing it. And then even though I'm angry inside because they stopped me, it's just almost like playing the again, shouldn't really have to, but through life and how the world is right now, we still have to try and, you know, we have to play the game sometimes, you know. And I think what could be dangerous for parents is if you're, you know, in a black community and stuff and you don't let your kids mix with other races, that could be dangerous because they may never grow up knowing how to deal with the other race. The reason why I know how to, when I say deal, you know, get on with white people, black people, Asians, whatever. I went to school outside of London for about 5 years, including end of school and college for about nearly 5 years, where I was the only black guy in my school. And when I went to that school, I had to learn how to communicate with a full school of white people. I was the token black guy by default. So I didn't like it at the time, but actually when I look back on it now, I'm like, okay, cool. I now know how to speak to white people, black people, whatever. So I think it's important that, you know, us as parents as well, we don't just say to our kids, okay, yeah, just, you know, if they want to have friends from different races, like I think we should encourage that.
Of course, man. Yeah. They should have that. But going back to what Dee was talking about, the aggressive and aggressive. I had a manager who was a friend, a black manager. It was funny though. I did ask her to challenge this so many times, she didn't. She would make comments. She was a manager, so she would always sit with the managers in their meeting, but she would feed back to me, drip, drip. She would make some statement. She would make some statement at any meetings there were, and they would term it as aggressive. And her colleague from the other race, who's similar position, would just copy and paste the same statement. They would say that one is very assertive. It caused big trouble. So they were doing this, and they've done it to me as well. But I sit here, like Tyler is saying, we sit here, it's easy for us to talk goals, we're on TV. People see me and they thought, oh, you can't mess up with that guy. That guy will be aggressive. Look, I'm a cuddly bear, man. I don't care. I don't care. I watch the body language, watch the non-verbal cues, and see where that was coming from. And I'll check you. I'm more aggressive on emails than human because I don't know where it will go if I react physically. I've seen people sound so condescending in their email to me. I just go ballistics and copy the whole word. I can take on you as there. But the person who's put the comment on that Tyler read out. Yes, this whole thing started from somewhere. That's what we said at the beginning. It is learned behavior. If we go far back to the colonial days, to the slavery days, that's what we were tagged as. We were aggressive, we were unkempt, we were diseased, and all of that. These things never change. I tell you, people were comfortable sitting at their table, dinner table, and talking about other races in this manner.
Yeah.
So they do it comfortably. They still do it. Some people still see us as very aggressive. So it is learned behavior. It's not just, it didn't just come from somewhere in the brain like Sigmund Freud was trying to describe his own unconscious.
It comes from, I think it's shaped by years of, as I say, internalized experience.
It is what it is. It is what it is. It's shaped.
Unconscious bias, this is a topic that we can go on talking for some time. We have decided that this topic would have to be one that would put over 2 episodes. So we will be continuing this topic next Sunday. This topic, there's so many other things we can touch on. We can touch on women and their threshold, how they categorize Black women and their threshold. We can talk about Black women when it comes to pregnancy and having babies. We can talk about our aggression and how they stamp and say, yes, we're aggressive when it comes to asking for things, even down to when we attend for medical checkups, they presume our pain threshold is way up there. There are other things we can talk about in regards to lockdown and how it's affected us. We can even talk about our young children, as we touched on today, when our young boys are wearing hoods.
Dee, if I can interrupt you, is it possible I interrupt you a minute? Quickly. I think somebody's just talked about Luther and Idris Elba playing that role. That's exactly what Tyler was saying. You see, I don't watch TV. I don't do terrestrial TV, so I don't pay TV license. So I know Elba in that role, but I've never watched that thing, whether it's a sitcom or I don't know what they call them. But if you know, last week was when the so-called diversity chief, I think
I saw that article.
So, BBC has done a token thing, like Tyler said, and employed somebody and made her the diversity chief. And this is what she came up with and said, when I read the role, it don't look like Idris don't look like a black. There's a way she played. She said,
she said it wasn't written for a black man because
person.
Why does he not have any black friends? Why does he not
doesn't have party? You don't have
doesn't eat any Jamaican.
You don't eat jerk chicken and all of that stuff.
Everybody, he's the only black man in the whole show.
Now you see, and this is the same Idris when there were talks about casting him as Bond, and the whole nation went ballistics. I had to get involved. And I said, for Christ's sake, Bond is fiction. It ain't real. Get over this Santa Claus business of thinking. That's why we have adults who walk around feeling so demented in the head because they thought Bond was real. So these are the things. But like Tyler said, Tyler has a perfect answer for that. Sometimes you need to get out there, you need to make the bread. And then you just take that role. You need to get the credits. So Idris is Idris now. He can't reject jobs now because he's made his name. But at the time he was being casted for that, probably he needed that job. He knew that this wasn't me. This was Thomas from the corner, but he had to do it. Sometimes we're pushed in that corner. Don't forget, this is about your own livelihood. That's where the unconscious or conscious bias becomes very dangerous, when it threatens your livelihood, threatens your way of life, your family, and then you then have to mend your own ways to suit or fit. That's when it becomes dangerous. When it's just common cracking jokes, it's different. So we can't really fault Idris or fault what's happened. But Idris, I'm pretty sure he's happy he's got a job. But at the stage where he is
He
now,
doesn't
he's
care
able
what
to
we
regret.
think.
No, now probably he's got an opinion. Like LeBron James, for example, he's at the stage where he don't care what people think about him.
Yep,
He can
he
say
says
whatever.
what he
But I'll
thinks.
tell you,
Yep.
at the time, he would have watched his back. People are coming of age. People are owning things. People are not just. I don't do work. I don't do work. So I'm not about the woke people. But people are beginning to understand how you play. Like Tyler said, you need to know how to play smart. There's a book that I have. I forgot to bring it. It's Thinking Like a White Man. It's a powerful book. How to play the whole system like them. I know somebody who's actually changed his name officially to a proper English name. And it's so, because he never got caught for any job. He was a teacher. When he gets the interview, they'll be like, seriously? Is that you? He'll be like, yes. They'll be like, no. And he'll bring out his passport. We don't have to go through all of this, but unfortunately we go through this. So
you have to play the game sometimes.
Exactly. That's what we've been talking about today. So today we've been talking about unconscious bias. And as I said, especially what Jude just ended with in regards to names, we will be talking about all of this next week. So what I wanted to say to you all, many thanks for tuning in this evening. If you can please just hit the subscription button, the subscribe, hit the notification bell. So when we come on live next week, you will get the alerts, and please like this video. We will see you next week when we do part 2 of unconscious bias. This is us, and we have arrived.
Bye.